And finally, it's here. One of the most important Redstone components we're going to see, and probably revolutionary, the crafter. Welcome to a new video of Big Brother 161, and today we will see basic stuff about the crafter. Although I have already done 2 videos about this element, I want to formalize the information we have and explain this element on this world. So, let's begin. Well, this is the real size version, and this is the recipe. A crafting table, a dropper, 2 redstone pieces, and some iron ingots. So once crafted, we obtain this. We can place it against some blocks, and depending on the direction we are seeing, we are going to place this block. For example, this one is facing south, east, north, west. We can also face it upwards, and again depending on the direction we are seeing, it is going to face that direction also. And it can also face downward, on the 4 directions. And this gives us a total of 12 different forms we can place the crafter. So, what does the crafter do? This piece basically is a crafting table with some redstone. As well as with the crafting table, depending on the display of the ingredients, we can obtain new objects. And the crafting table works alike. So suppose we have some iron ingots, and we do this shape. We are obtaining iron bars. Different from the crafting table, we can leave the ingredients in the crafter. They can wait there forever, until it receives a redstone signal. This signal executes the crafting, and then the new pieces are expelled from the face of the crafter. Let's change the shape, and we can craft something different. For example, an iron trapdoor. Another example are doors, or maybe sticks. So it only needs a redstone signal, and then the correct ingredients are displayed inside. For example, they have these arrays of repeaters over here, and the crafter is going to execute the crafting once it receives the signal. For example, here a long signal, and once received, the crafting is executed. Nothing happens during the pulse or at the end of the pulse. For example, here we can do 2 pulses. As you may have observed, the crafter can also be fed by a hopper. We fill it up with iron ingots, and we can see that the crafter is starting to fill up. And of course, with a few redstone signals, it's going to start to craft the new objects. And the hopper is going to continue feeding the items. But what if we stop it? And hoppers also work the other way. So let's release this hopper, and suppose we start filling up the crafter with new materials. Let's stop the process. We craft some few products. But eventually, the ingredients are not going to be enough to continue crafting. So below the crafter we can place the hopper and use it to remove the remaining ingredients. Another characteristic about the crafter is that when crafting the new object, is going to expel it in the direction where it is facing. So here we can see it is facing south up. So basically we need to see this quote-unquote face. So redstone signal expelled. And in this example it is facing up. So the product is expelled up. And this one is expelled in the direction of the lever. In this case, the product is expelled downwards. Of course, we don't want the product just to be lying on the ground, so we need to pick it up. One of the obvious solutions is placing a hopper just below the block where the product is going to appear. So once crafted, the hopper is going to absorb it immediately, and then it can be stored in the chest. Or we can place the crafter like this and build a glass tube to direct the product towards a hopper. Another solution is building a packed ice path for the items to travel further. We can even place a water stream for the items to travel even further. But the simplest way to do this is placing a storage block just in front of the crafter. Once the crafter does its job, the product is going to be stored automatically. So, what blocks count as storage? As we already saw in the previous video, chest, trap chest, dispenser, dropper, hopper, chisel bookshelf, shulker box, other crafters. We also have chest minecart, hopper minecart, furnace, blast furnace, smoker, the pot, there is a product. And we also have our elements that one might think are going to work, but they don't. For example, we have the lectern, the composter, the end portal frame, and the beacon. As we already saw, we can use a hopper to fit in the ingredients. And as we saw, there is an order in which these slots are going to be filled up. We just activate the hopper and we can see this has an order. And once all the slots are filled up, it starts all over again. And the order is the following. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Once all the items till the last slot of the same type of item are filled, it starts all over again from 1. So we can look for a recipe and just feed in the ingredients in the correct order, and then with a redstone signal craft the final item. As you may be imagining, this is the recipe for the cake. The first item that is going to arrive is this bucket of milk. The second and third item also. The fourth one is going to be sugar, then egg, sugar, and finally 3 wheats. So following the order in which the items are going to be filled up, then we can craft the recipe. So the items have arrived. So we click, craft, there is the cake. Also with the subproducts of the empty buckets. Using this technique, we can also craft simple stuff. In this example we have 6 wooden planks. Another function of the crafter is that we can click on the slots we are not going to use for the recipe, and they are blocked. For example, with this figure, we can craft trapdoors. Now if we do this figure, we can craft doors. And if we block these 3 slots, we can craft stairs. And with this figure here, we can do sticks. We can do the same thing with bamboo. We just have to block the slots we're not going to use. And as long as the figure is correct, it does not matter where it is placed. Another characteristic is that we can obtain the signal from the crafter using a comparator, because this element can detect the state of the crafter. Let's suppose we're going to add one single item. Well, the comparator extracts a power of 1. If we place the rest of the stack, power 1. Let's see, for example, one item on the second slot, power rose to 2. So let's do this, but on different slots, power level is 2. So let's fill up all the slots with one single item each. We obtain maximal power, 9. Here are 9 items, but even if we place the full stack on one slot, power is 1. So let's block 4 slots. You can see here the power is 5, because there are 5 unavailable slots, and if we select the remaining 4, the power is 9. So one way to think about it is that the comparator is going to detect how many of the slots of the crafter are full or unavailable. That is independently of how many items are on each slot. Well, starting from this point on, we're going to see a redstone contraption that is going to work for any recipe in the game, or almost all of them. And this is what I call the universal redstone crafter contraption. Of course, not really universal, it only works for recipes that use 3 ingredients or less. Nonetheless, the vast majority of the cases, because the recipes on the game that use 4 ingredients or more are very few. For example, one of them we already saw is the cake. Besides that, the vast majority of them use only 3 ingredients or less. So first we only need this space of 4 by 7 by 5 of 8. So first, one block of the floor, we're going to place a redstone lamp. In the frontal lever, a redstone dot, 2 slabs, here a repeater, redstone in the frontal block, which is being fed by this repeater, and just above this block, the crafter, the main piece. Feeding into the crafter, we're going to place these 3 hoppers. And over these hoppers, we can place the chests for the ingredients. So this lab's over here, where we're going to place the comparators, extracting the signal from the hoppers. In front of the comparators, fitting these blocks. In each of these blocks, we're going to place the redstone torches, which take off this redstone piece. Now, what are these comparators for? Basically, they're going to detect the signal from the hoppers, just in case any of these hoppers ran out of ingredients and are empty, because we don't want the crafter to craft anything that is weird or an unwanted recipe. So we're going to come from the part up behind. Here we place a block, here another one, and here another one. We take this off, here a redstone piece, then we place here a repeater in this direction, and another repeater down here on the other direction. Here, a redstone torch. And that's how we have the universal contraption. So now we're going to see how to configure the delay on these repeaters back here. There are going to be many recipes that are going to require different quantities of each of the ingredients. In the first example, we're going to see how to configure this in the case of each of the ingredients requiring only one slot. For example, crafting buttons, planks only go in one slot, and for crafting sticks, planks go in 2 slots. If we want to craft slabs, planks go in 3 slots. And for the crafting table, there are 4 slots. In the case where the ingredients only take 1 slot, we're going to leave both repeaters on position 1. That way the contraption is going to work at max speed. In the case where there is at least 1 ingredient that occupies 2 slots, one of the repeaters, we're going to place it on the 2nd position. In the case that at least 1 ingredient is used in 3 slots, we're going to place one of the repeaters on the 4th position. And in the case that one of the ingredients is going to require 4 slots, for example the crafting table, we're going to place one of the repeaters on the 4th position and the other repeater on the 3rd position. So let's start with a few examples. Taking that contraption over there, we're going to rebuild it over here. And in the first example, we're going to configure this contraption to craft fire rockets with duration 1. So for things first, well, maybe this chest is not going to be needed. But now we need to go to the crafter and block every slot we are not going to use for the recipe. Then we place a stack of each of the ingredients to craft the rockets. That way we craft duration 1 rockets. If we flick the lever, you're going to see that the contraption is not working, because these hoppers are empty. Since this is an example of the first configuration, we're going to configure the delay of the repeaters accordingly. You can see they're already in the first position, position 1, position 1. So now we're going to proceed and fill up the rest of the ingredients. First the paper, and then the supply of gunpowder. Then you're going to see that the hoppers are draining down the ingredients. And since the crafter is already full, the items are going to start to fill up in the hoppers. And this recipe in particular only needs 2 ingredients. So this 3rd chest over here can be used to fill up more paper or gunpowder, or we can block this part of the contraption. For example, removing this redstone torch. And once configured, we click the lever and the contraption starts working. We can see here, it is crafting duration 1 rockets. This is as long as the materials are being supplied by the hoppers. And with the configuration of these repeaters, the contraption is working fast enough. At the same time, it is not allowing that the slots in the crafter run out of materials. But let's suppose this hopper runs out of paper. Here you can see that the paper ran out. Let me go to the front part. This redstone torch is activated, blocking out the contraption. This is only until we can provide more paper, and the crafting continues. Now we're going to see the case of the duration 2 rocket. First step, we come to the crafter and configure the recipe. We block out the rest of the slots. The supply can be done in 2 ways. The first chest is filled with paper. Then we only need one of these to provide the gunpowder. But what's happening here is that this hopper is providing gunpowder for these 2 slots. One way, if we want to use that configuration, is that we can also use this second chest to provide more gunpowder. That way we have one hopper providing each of the 2 slots of gunpowder. But the second way is using only one. In this case, we remove this torch. We configure the repeaters the following way. One repeater on position 2, and that's what we do here. With this speed, the hopper is able to provide gunpowder for 2 slots, and the crafting continues. The first way we can do it, as I already told you, is provide gunpowder also through this way, and we reconfigure as the first case. You can see that the speed is adequate. And finally, we will work with duration 3 rockets. So we come to a crafter. This is the recipe, the gunpowder, 1 paper, and we block out the rest of the slots. The first supply line is paper. Just to show you what happens on case number 3, when we have 1 hopper providing items for 3 slots. This is the configuration. We configure repeaters the following way: position 4 and position 1. Now here we supply gunpowder, 1 hopper providing paper, and 1 hopper providing gunpowder for the 3 slots. And with this configuration, crafting speed works. Crafter is receiving materials with no problem. What will happen if the configuration is not the correct one? For example, let's use the fastest configuration. We can observe that the quantity of gunpowder on the slots is starting to diminish. This is because crafter is crafting at a much greater speed than the hopper can provide materials. That's why the repeater configuration is important. Now let's see an example for the golden carrots. First we go to the crafter and configure the recipe. Now let's get to the first chest and configure it to provide carrots. We configure this one for golden nuggets. We can also configure this chest for golden nuggets. That way we can provide the nuggets at twice the speed. Since we have 2 hoppers providing nuggets and the recipe requires 8 nuggets, we basically have 1 hopper providing 4 slots. This example fits into the 4th case, where we have 1 hopper providing 4 slots. We have to configure the repeaters the following way: this one in the 3rd position and this one in the 4th position. Let's flick the lever. In this case we can see the hoppers are able to provide golden nuggets at the appropriate speed. We see the product here. Now we're going to see another example with pumpkin pies. An advantage of this food source is that we can build automatic farms for each of these ingredients. So we come to the crafter, configure the recipe with the 3 ingredients, which can actually go in any position. Lock out the rest of the slots. And now we're going to configure each chest with 1 ingredient each. 1 for the eggs, 1 for the sugar, and 1 for the pumpkins. So remember that each of these hoppers only need to provide for 1 slot each. The speed configuration is this one. Each repeater on position 1, which is case number 1. We flick the lever, and we can see that the crafter has no problem. Now we're going to use this contraption to craft storage blocks. In this case we're going to use bone meal to craft bone blocks. But it can also work for dry kelp to craft dry kelp blocks, or crafting golden ingots from golden nuggets, and then use the ingots to craft golden blocks, or iron ingots to build iron blocks, etc. A lot of examples of storage blocks. Remember that we need 9 of these to craft a storage block. And so this can work fast. We can provide the materials using the 3 hoppers. Flick the lever, they start to flow. No need to block any slots because all of this is bone meal. And the 3 hoppers are filled up with bone meal. And since we have 9 slots and 3 hoppers, each of the hoppers is going to provide material for 3 slots. So this will be an example of the 3rd case. The repeater configuration is the following. This repeater on position 1, and this repeater on position 4. And we can see that all 9 slots at this speed are being adequately provided. Crafting at an appropriate speed bone blocks. But I consider that this redstone contraption is not appropriate for storage blocks. For this application in particular, I actually recommend this. For example, we can attach this supply to a bone meal farm. So a hopper is basically going to provide material to the crafter. From the crafter we take out the signal with a comparator, with some redstone looping around into a target block, which is going to activate the crafter. And attach to the auxiliary of the comparator another comparator which is getting a signal from a crafter. What we need from this comparator in particular is that it provides a power 9 signal. Here I have a crafter with all 9 slots locked out. So this comparator is going to read power 9. Of course, instead of the crafter, we can also place a lectern with a book of 15 pages on page 9. Once this comparator detects that the crafter is full, that basically means that the crafter is able to craft a bone block. The crafter is facing up into this chest. As you can see, once all the slots are full, this means that it is able to craft a bone block. And it starts to deliver the product into this chest. And you can see the redstone contraption in action over here. You are going to observe that this redstone contraption is a lot simpler than the first one, at the very least for this particular application. And since this contraption is going to be one of the most common, I am going to add it to my farms. And pretty much for any other recipe, I'm going to try to use the universal contraption. And if you want to see any more information, remember that recently I made a video about 5 common applications using the crafter. Some of them are explaining in more detail over here, but in case you want to see any more, I'll leave the link over here. This has been BigBrother161, and remember, I will be crafting you.